Hey everybody, this is Daniel here with Propelio, and today we have Grant Kemp here for another episode of You Are Not a Wholesaler. We're going to be talking about how to refinance and foreclose to manufacture equity in a deal that you have no equity in to start with, and that is going to be the premise of our show today, and let's have some fun. All right, everybody, we have the Grant Kemp here from Grant Teach Me Something here on Wednesdays. For those that may or may not know, he has been a mentor of mine for, wow, close to 6 or 7 years,
I was thinking
man.
that, yeah, on the way in. I was like, dang, man, we started working together probably 2012.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, which is crazy because, like, for those that may or may not know, I mean, y'all watch this Propelio TV all the time. You see him here on Wednesdays, but y'all may not understand the background of how Grant and I got to know each other. I actually believe you were mentoring some friends of mine, and I was wanting to learn creative financing because I'd already done a lot of the other strategies, and creative financing wasn't available to me in any of the other circuits. And you were one of the only people I knew of. There was like, you know, it's like, let's go talk to Grant. And you were kind enough to kind of welcome me into your office, and we started talking, and before long we were doing deals together. So for anybody
and for the record, let me just address that real quick in that there's a right way to network, right? And Daniel walked in the right way. He's like, look, I'm a freaking hustler. I'm ready to work. I've got this stuff going. How about we work on some deals together? I'll do the work. You teach me how it does, and then we'll split these deals out, right? So always remember, when you're approaching somebody to network, it's never about, man, I could give you pages and pages and pages of just last week people who would just Facebook message me like, hey, can you drop everything and run my deal for me? I'm like, no, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. But I've literally had like maybe one person in the last several years that's like, hey, I've got time, I want to work these deals, can we work them together, right? And like, you were one of those people that came in and was like, let's do this together. And so you've gotten a great strategy that's gotten over time, and I got something out of it too, and that's how you should be networking with people in general, just as a side note.
I remember when that started, I was getting a massive amount of inbound traffic off of pre-foreclosure marketing. And there were just a lot of deals that would come up that were slim, and it was just like, you know, I don't have anything I can do with them. And I was watching you, Ronnie, Scott, and you know, the Happy House guys just killing it on the creative financing stuff, and I was like, I have to have a part of that, and you were willing to show me. So we're going to highlight one of your deals today. We're gonna go through and talk about one of these properties that I remember creatively watching y'all take down. I was like off on the sidelines, like cheering y'all on. I was like, go, 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 because I just remember how creative it was. And that's the point to these shows. You know, you're not a wholesaler aspect of stuff. So many people get tied up on that. Oh, I want to wholesale. I want to wholesale. I want to wholesale. That's great. Right. That is great. If you want to wholesale, man, that is absolutely great. But if you want to survive in this business for long term, once you've got that wholesaling aspect figured out, you're going to need to learn how to pivot. So we're going to talk about that today. Can you give us a little bit of background on what this deal was?
Yeah, for sure. So this is one of those deals that, you know, if you've watched me for a while, you know that part of my big stick up my rear about creative financing is that it allows you to take down deals that nobody else can. And one of my favorite things about like my portfolio is that 85+% of my portfolio was told no by somebody else before I made money on it, right? And I think that that's one of the real big keys for you to pay attention to, I want to be a wholesaler guy, is that I'm buying the houses that you're saying no to. And that's what Daniel saw from afar and was like, hey, wait a minute, there's these guys over here buying houses that I have to say no to. And he was smart enough to look into the future, and that built out your portfolio for your long-term income, right? The tomorrow money. So this deal was a deal that came to us, and it was a challenge, but there was something to be said because the seller was motivated, right?
So a motivated seller means more. I always hear people talking about, I'm looking for distressed houses, or you know, I'm looking for I'm looking for distressed sellers.
Yep.
I could care less what the house looks like. It could be bulldozable today, and it's not a deal if the seller is not motivated to work with me.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things. Like, so I'll do some public speaking a lot of times, and one of the ways that I intentionally trip people up at the beginning of it is I will ask you know, in a non-rhetorical way, what makes a deal, right? And I should have done that now. We could have done that anyway, but we've given you the answer already. What makes a deal is not that it's a 3-bedroom brick house that was built after 1970. What makes a deal is a guy that wants to sell you that house, right?
That means more than anything.
Absolutely. So this person was ready to work. They were intelligent. They were, they understood. Miranda notices the cup. Yes, Miranda, I am using the cup today. I almost didn't get to, but anyway, whatever. We're using it.
For those that don't get the backstory on that, my wonderful wife ordered all of us some cups up here, and we rarely use them, so we always get a bit of a jab whenever we come up here with a Starbucks coffee cup or something like that.
Show them the other side.
Yes, this is my own personal cup. But I'm Grant. Wait, what is it? Not that Grant.
Yeah. So for those that get the inside joke on that, they get the inside joke on that.
Anyway, so. So this deal, right? This deal.
We're having a little bit of fun here today, guys.
We had a motivated seller, and here's the other part. So I was talking with the AZ Flip guys, cool guys, Cashflow Chris and BP on Friday, and you know, one of the things that BP really hammers is that you get deals from networking, right? And I'm going to back that up 100%. One of the things that kind of frustrates me with all of my students, I say all of my students, with a lot of my students, is I will sit there and preach to them, hey, network, network, network. That's how you get deals. You're going to get deals from finding networking. And they're like, yeah, but how do you send mail? I'm like, okay, you can send mail, but like, I will tell you 95% of my deals have come from somebody who knows that I'm the guy that closes. Oh, that's a great idea. So should I call people then? You know, and it's networking. So I was at a networking event, and this guy showed up to the networking event right here in Arlington. Actually, this house is maybe 5 miles up the road from this studio, right on the other side of 30. Shows up to this networking event, and comes up to me afterwards, says, hey, I've got a deal. And this is part of the reason why you should always network and always rub elbows with people who you know, people know, because I was talking to like 3 people. This guy says, hey man, I've got this deal. I said, oh, that's cool. Hey, let me introduce you to my buddy David here who works in Arlington. And I introduced him, and that little handshake right there made David $33,000.
That's awesome.
So, just because he was standing there in proximity and we knew what was going on, so he was able to get in on this deal here. The guy comes up and says, hey, here's what's going on. I owe $300,000 on my first lien. I owe $180,000 on my second lien. Okay.
300 and 180.
300 and 180 for a total of 480.
Okay.
Okay. Y'all want to guess how much the house is worth?
480.
Basically.
All right.
Yeah, 490 to 500 was what we had.
Okay.
Right. So you guys tell me, if I'm going to sell a house on the retail market, how much of that sales price do we need to expect to sell or to pay in fees, right? So we'll give you a second because there's a delay here. So we'll give you a second to answer that.
How much fees?
How much in fees do you have to pay when you're selling on the retail market, right?
Okay.
So keep that in mind. I want to hear what y'all's answers are there. So we've got a deal now facing us that is at water, is what I call it. It's not underwater, but it's at water.
Let me go ahead and pull through these numbers one more time. First position lien. 300,000?
300,000 on the first.
All right. I got a second position at 180. So I'm all in at 480, and the house is worth 480.
Basically.
So how many wholesalers do we have out there that are looking at this deal already saying, this is not an appointment I'm going on? So you're telling me there's no equity left in it. It's completely encumbered with a first position and a second position lien. Where are we going from here? So what happens?
Yeah. So, so Matt Smith has chimed in. He said 6% in closing costs. Okay, so that's close.
I'm leaning towards 7.5.
Yeah. So for us as investors who are experienced, who have like connections in the industry, might be able to get a discounted listing rate or something like that. Yeah, we might be paying 6 or 7%. For the normal Joe Blow. And especially at this point in time, because it was hard to sell houses. What does that make it? A buyer's market. It was a buyer's market at that point in time. It was hard to sell houses.
This was 2013-ish,
It was 2013 or so, yeah. So it was harder to sell houses. So you were expected to pay some closing costs on top of that as the seller. So as a typical rule of thumb, and Jeremiah chimes in with 8%, yeah, that's about right for people nowadays, for normal Joe Blow. This point in time is about 10%. Pam, I like your answer, 9 to 12%. That's really kind of the most accurate, in my opinion, for a just Joe Blow seller who needs to sell their house, right?
That's including concessions, real estate agent fees, title fees,
exactly,
closing costs. We're looking at 9 to 12% of the resale value. All right.
So if we round that for round numbers, make it easy on us. Let's use round numbers because I think we listed this, at 500. Spoiler alert: I bought the house. So I think we listed it at 500.
So hold on. You bought the house. There's $480,000 in liens.
Yes.
And you're planning on listing it for $500, and we're already talking about $48,000 in sales costs.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense.
Didn't add up, right?
That does not make any sense at all. So what's going on here?
So this is where the creativity has to come into play. So we want to make this a really interactive episode, okay? We'd like for you guys to start chiming in because I don't want to, and this is Daniel, you have a great idea in this. We don't want to sit up here and just tell you how this stuff works because that doesn't help you learn, right? So we're going to ask a series of questions. We're going to try and get your brain working. We're see kind of what y'all might be able to come up with to make this deal work. So here's the spoiler alert. Well, maybe should I tell them how much I made on this deal yet? Or should we hold that back for a minute? Let's see. I made a lot of money on this deal.
Let's hold back on that for a second.
Okay.
Well, go ahead and say it.
I made about $115,000 net on this deal.
So was that over time or was that one cash?
It was one cash.
So you received a check for 115 grand.
I received a check for 150 grand. I netted 115.
So you net 115 off of a deal that most everybody that's watching right now would have walked away from. I've got 40 plus people watching right now between YouTube and Facebook right now. How many people out there right now would have bought this house? I've got 60 people watching right now. How many people would have bought this house? 300K first lien, 180K second lien, total encumbrances 480,000, worth 480,000 sold, and you were able to extract over 6 figures of ethical equity out of this property.
Of a net equity, yeah, absolutely. So we already have some thought processes coming in here. We've got Chris saying, did it via short sale?
Call the second position.
We got Sonia saying, call the second position. Those are great ideas.
So that's the very first thing that pops into my head. We've got a very large second position, a very comfortable loan to value on our first position. My very first thought on this property as an experienced real estate investor is let's short.
Right.
What happened?
So here's the thing. So first of all, I like where everybody's brain is going. And I want y'all to keep, as we're talking, don't even wait for us. If you have an idea of what might work, please go ahead and chime in because we are on a delay here. So it makes it easier on us if you just go ahead and chime in with your ideas so that we can see them. Because we want this to be a brainstorming session.
And I want to go ahead and throw in on top of that right now. So we're talking about let's do a short. For those that are watching that are wholesaling and might not directly understand what a short is, I want to explain to you. So a short is whenever I approach a lender and I ask that lender to accept a lower payoff than what is currently owed to release the lien. So if the lender is owed $100,000, I'll try and get that lender to accept $50,000 in lieu of the full 100 and get them to release all liens. So it's a short sale. What they mean is they short the payoff paid to the lender, and that's me trying to get the property at a discount. So if you're watching, you don't understand what a short is, that's kind of what a short is.
Right, absolutely.
So
here's the problem with the short. So we are, let's expand a little bit on the situation. We're $180,000 on the second, we're $300 on the first, $80,000 behind on the second. Did I mention that?
$80,000 behind on the second?
He hadn't paid for 3.5 years.
Is that $80,000 included in the 180? Is that 180 principal or is that 180 principal and arrears?
That's 180 principal. So the arrearages are so the payoff. If we're saying the payoff would have been somewhere in the 200 range for the.
All right. So for everybody that's watching, this was a deal 6 years ago. So we're stretching some memories here.
Yeah.
But
so the difference being, and here's something that I want to point out to you guys because this is going to be very important in a lot of different situations, right? And this is not necessarily super pertinent to this particular deal, but I do want you guys to do this because it's one of the most common areas of confusion that I see when we're talking about arrearages and reinstatements. So if we have $80,000 in arrears, okay, and I say the principal balance on this thing is $180. When we pay that $80,000 in arrears, what is the new principal balance going to be on this second mortgage?
Because that $80,000 is going to include principal in the payments.
Right, exactly. So the most common, and I want you guys, again, chime in to what you think this is. The most common thoughts that are going to be here is that people will say, okay, it's 180 on the mortgage statement, because that's what you're looking at, right? You're looking at the mortgage statement, it says 180, and then you're seeing a thing that says you owe $80,000. So it's 180, they owe 80. So one of the common misconceptions is they will say, okay, well, this person really owes 260. Whenever we pay the 80 up, they're going to still owe 180. Okay. The other misconception is, okay, it's 180, they owe 80, so when we pay this 80, they owe 100. Okay. Both of those are wrong. Both of those are wrong. And why is that? What makes up a payment?
You got principal, interest, and if escrowed, taxes and insurance.
Absolutely.
So we got principal, interest, and if escrowed, taxes and insurance. What are we looking at whenever I pay off this one? Or if I pay off this $80,000, what's going to happen?
So typically, and so in this case, it's a second, so they weren't escrowing, the first was escrowing.
Okay.
So all of this 80 in this case was purely principal and interest.
Okay.
Plus fees, right? Because when you're late, you have to pay late fees. And then when you're so late, attorney's fees start drawing in, right? So you've got principal, interest, late fees, and attorney's fees that go into that. So only one of these items is actually going to affect your principal. So in other words, if we pay this at 80, and again, this was from 5, 6 years ago. If we paid this 80, we might have had a principal balance of like 140 or something. Typically, when you're paying PITI plus all those fees, typically 15 to 20% of whatever your reinstatement amount is going to go towards principal. Typically.
Okay.
This was a little bit different because it was in the second position, but I'm just pointing out there that like putting up that 80 wasn't going to bring us down all the way to 100. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Our payoff on that loan would have been closer, I think, to like 200 because of all the fees and stuff.
Let's pull this back to the story a little bit,
right?
And let's figure out what happened there.
All right.
What's going on there?
Think about this, and I've already seen some really good ideas pop across here. Let's actually scroll through a couple of these. So, Andre said, okay, so he's talking about the payments. We need to find out how many payments. Scroll up a little bit, Ryan. We had a couple of good ideas pop in there. Jason says, sub to the rap note. Where did that go?
I don't want to get distracted by this too much.
Oh, okay.
If we got some good comments coming in, I'll ask Ryan to throw them up here on the screen.
Right.
But I want to keep this story evolving because we've got an hour here, and this is a pretty intricate deal.
It is a pretty intricate deal.
I want people to be able to not only hear the story, but I want them to be able to understand the story so that way the next time they're on an appointment, if they understand it, they might be able to apply some principle. But if they hear the story and don't understand it, we're lost there. So let's see what we can do.
So the subject here then is the short sale, right?
Yeah, so we're at the
Why
short
didn't we
sale.
short sale? Well,
did you try?
We tried. Part of the issue here, actually I take that. We didn't really try the short sale because of this situation. The first lien was current. The first lien had a, 55% LTV, right?
Yeah, that's so... For those that don't understand, loan to value, LTV, loan to value, that's the position that lender is in. I have this much money loaned against a property that's worth this much. And they're at like barely 50 to 60% LTV. They're owed 300, the house is worth 5. That's probably like a 60% LTV. Most banks are okay with that. And why they're okay with that is they know that if they foreclose on their position and they take it to the auction, they're probably getting their money back.
Absolutely, because here's one of the very most intricate parts of this story. And if you've watched Grant Teach Me Something, you see me talk about this and you say, and I commonly, when I start talking about lien positions, I'm like, look, I know this is boring right now, but you need to understand this stuff because some of the really complicated things are going to be very dependent on you getting this, right? So let's talk about lien position a little bit.
Okay.
Why does lien position matter? Why does that first lien not really care how far behind he is on this second lien?
Because if that lender forecloses, they're going to wipe all encumbrances of title that are in a subordinate position to them. And basically what I'm meaning is like if I'm standing in line and I decide to throw my hand up and say I'm done, everybody that's in line behind me gets knocked out.
Right.
And if I'm in the first person in line, I don't really care who else is standing in line because I'm in a good position. I'm going to get fed no matter what.
And what creates lien position?
The time and date that it was filed.
That's all that matters. Nothing but time and date matters in lien position. So you can have a lien that was filed on January 1st for $6, and then a lien that was filed on February 1st for $700,000. And if you stop paying that $6 lien and they foreclose, that $700,000 lien gets wiped out. No ifs, ands, or buts.
That's wild.
Right?
That is wild.
So lien position is only determined by time and date. This is very, very important to the intricacies of the story. So short sale wasn't really going to happen because our first lien lender didn't really care that they were fully leveraged.
But I don't really need that first lien position to short at all because they have a comfortable equity position. It's that second position that I'm really going to need to fight with because it's that second position lien that's eating up all the equity.
Right.
And normally, like you just said, $6 lien on January 1 versus $700,000 lien on February 1, that $6 lien is going to win all day long. Yep. So it's that second position lender that's really got the motivation to work with me. So if I'm approaching that deal, I'm attacking that second lender saying, we're going to work through something and get this property, reduced because you're in a second position, and if things go wrong, you're going to get wiped anyway. So
that's absolutely what happened.
What's going on with that second lender?
So we called the second lender several times with the borrower. Okay. Because here's the thing is that, like I said, we had a motivated seller. Well, motivated sellers are motivated to work with you, right? So we had him, just like you always should with an owner financing deal, you get a power of attorney, an authorization to release information. So that means that you can talk directly to the bank without them even being involved. So we get that authorization from our seller. Okay. We'll call him Billy. And so Billy sells us the property. I'm sorry, Billy sells his property, but is willing to work with us. We start talking to the second lien lender and we say, look, Billy, here's going to be our first shot. Our first shot is let's call these second lien guys and see what we can work out with them.
And these second lien people are owed $180,000 and $80,000 in past due principal and interest payments.
Right.
So they haven't been paid in a long time.
Correct.
And in my opinion, these people should be motivated to accomplish and or do something.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. So what should these people's attitudes be?
They're in a bad position. They're in second position, and if they're in arrears and that first position for whatever reason forecloses, second position's wiped. They lose all of their money. So I'm thinking they should be motivated to try and work with you. But what I'm gathering from your responses here and from my knowledge of the history of this.
They didn't want to play ball.
They didn't want to play ball.
For whatever reason, they didn't want to play ball. They didn't want to chat. I mean, we could talk to them. We could talk to them all day about, hey, this is going to happen. And here's the other thing, too, is that lenders don't know what's going on with other loans, right? Okay. So as far as they're concerned, think about it from their position. They should be shaking in their boots because if they're $80,000 behind on that second lien, what do you think is going on with that first lien?
It's likely behind as well.
It's likely behind as well. Now, that wasn't the case in this story. But as far as they were concerned, this dude's behind on all his payments. He's probably behind on all his payments, which means that he's facing a foreclosure on both sides, and these people are going to get wiped out. So you would think, logically, that these people would be super motivated, but they were not. They didn't want to have anything to do with trying to figure things out. But they're 3+ years behind, and these people had not filed for foreclosure.
Okay.
Right? This lender, for whatever reason, was not moving forward with foreclosure. Can you explain to us what happens if the second lien lender does foreclose? How does that work?
If the second lien does foreclose, they're going to take it subject to any encumbrance of a superior position. Like if I'm a second lien position and I foreclose, I still have to handle first position. First position is still there. It doesn't get wiped. So if I end up foreclosing, I still have to deal with first position.
Right. And so then the question becomes, thinking from the second lien lender's idea, right? And again, we're talking ideas, we're talking principles, right? So trying to think, and so if they actually had $180,000 cash out on the line, right, their position was not necessarily great to do that. Because when you get a second lien, you are disclosed. Like, you're going to know how much was on that first lien because part of that lending process is figuring out what the total LTV was. Right? So for whatever reason, they were comfortable with getting fully leveraged on this deal. Leveraging, you want to explain leveraging, what that is?
Leveraging is just the amount of debt held against the property in relation to what it's owed. So if I have a $100,000 house and I have $100,000 in loans, I'm 100% leveraged. If I got a $50,000 loan on a $100,000 house, I'm a 50% leverage.
Right. Think about leveraging as a lever, right? You've got a fulcrum point and you're using something to create something else, right? Like, so typically in a lever situation, you can use a little bit to get a lot. That's what we're doing with like a down payment, right? We're using a 10% down payment. We might be leveraging that 10% of money to get a larger amount in place.
Well, let's get back to this short.
These guys are fully leveraged. They weren't willing to talk to us at all. Okay. So now we had to start getting creative. Now we had to start thinking about what can we do, because what we wanted to do was go in there and offer them a short.
So everybody that's watching right now, we started out with a 300K first, 180K second, 80,000 in arrears, 500,000 property, way over leveraged. Property has just got no opportunity for equity at all. A lot of the comments that are coming in and a lot of the initial thoughts on a deal like this is going to be, let's short this property. Let's go ahead. We've got a first position lien that's in a really good spot. We got a second position lien that's got a really fat nugget on it. Short sale screaming at me all day long. I've seen a lot of people out here on Facebook world and YouTube world screaming, let's short this thing. We try the short and it fails.
Right.
How many people out there watching right now are going to be at the end of the rope? What do we do from here? Where do we go? And that's the point of this show today, is because I want y'all to see how real estate does not stop at the end of a specific strategy. Real estate investing as a whole is 360 degrees. And if you're trying to go one direction and you hit a wall, you pivot just a little bit and keep going and going. And you just pivot until you've done a full 360 degrees. And until you've done a full 360, that deal's not dead.
Right.
You've got a no from this second position lender.
Right.
And you do one of the most creative things I've ever heard of. And let's start dragging this out of you because it's genius. But I'm gonna need you to slow it down so that way, you gotta remember, we've got people watching here that may have heard about real estate 6 days ago, and we've got people watching here that have heard about real estate 6 years ago. So let's try and keep in mind and let's run through
And I'm seeing some great comments come through, because I'm seeing a lot of thought processes come through that are good thought processes. So how about this? Do you want to hit a break and then come back and start actually digging out some of these more detailed responses?
Let's do that.
To what we did. So we're going to take a break real quick. When we come back, I'm going to start unfolding how I netted $115,000 on this fully levered deal.
That's awesome. Some ideas here. Hey everybody, we are back. I'm just kind of scrolling through some of these Facebook and YouTube comments. We're seeing a lot of really good ones popping up there. But let's get back to this.
So here is one of the concerns of the seller. Okay, so we saw a borrower file BK thing. They didn't want their credit affected. That's why they're motivated. Okay, they didn't want a foreclosure there.
So they don't want a foreclosure, but they haven't made a payment in 3 years. Their credit's affected. But that was their motivation.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I got to make sure that these people realize is you will be surprised what some people's motivations are. And if you are solely focused on the one thing that you can think of, which is how much can I offer them, if that's the only thing you're thinking about, you're not solving problems, because you should be thinking about what can I provide them that will solve their problem? And their problem is not always money. So this person was motivated by fixing or keeping their credit clean, no foreclosure.
Right. All right, so I'm going to start drawing some things out for you, because we're about to get complicated. Okay, I'm gonna drag, and we're gonna take this step by step. And this is a no soldier left behind moment. So if you're confused by something, please stop us. But we've got some good ideas that are the right thought processes. So our first lien, what we had here was $300,000. Okay. Now I don't remember what bank this was with. Was
it a big bank?
It was a smaller
regional
bank. Okay. So that was a nice thing to it. This was part of the equation that made this doable for us. It was a smaller bank. Okay, so we had $300K at like, I think 4% or so, something like that. Had some time left on it. And then we have the second lien over here, which is behind, and they have $180,000 at whatever percent, doesn't really matter. And they're 80 grand behind. So now what we're looking at is, because they didn't want to work with us, what we had to do is we had to...
Are you going to go all the way to the end? Because I've got some ideas before we get to the end.
Please throw these at me.
So if I'm the wholesaler and I'm sitting here looking at this, or I'm not even the wholesaler, if I'm the real estate investor at this property and I'm looking at this and I try the short, my next step that I would try to do is try to purchase that first position lien. That is what I would try to do. I would try to buy that first position lien. And why would I want that first position lien? So I'm trying to drag this out for...
Right, no, that's absolutely right. So why would he want the first position lien?
I know.
Right.
If I'm in first
so
position...
wipe everybody else out.
If I'm in first position lien and there's a default, then I can wipe everything else out. So if I know that I understand my lien positions, which goes right back to what you were talking about earlier today, I know that lien position has a really good position.
Right.
I want that position. So if I can't get the second to do anything for me, I will try to go in and buy that first position note. And then if there's any defaults within the deed of trust, I'll foreclose, wipe the second out, and I've got the house.
Right.
Did y'all ever approach that path?
We did. So this bank in first lien position did not want to sell us the note. Right? And we couldn't figure out why either, right? Especially because of what ended up with the end result here. But they didn't want to sell the note for whatever reason that was.
Because I had that conversation go. I can understand if we're talking about like a Bank of America or a Chase or whatnot. Who did you call? Who did you talk to? And what was the response? Because like I'm sitting here thinking in the back of my head, it's like, why won't you sell me this note?
Right. And here's another big part of, and actually forgive me because we did go down that road. We got a quick no from both the bank, but also from the seller. Okay. So now I'm remembering another piece of this because I forgot that step. Because if we do that and we buy that first lien position note,
they still got a foreclosure.
We've still got a foreclosure on their record.
Okay.
Right. So now they are not really getting any benefit to it. Because
now I'm
if we're foreclosing on them, that's what they were trying to avoid from in the first place, and we're going to get all this equity from doing the deal on the back end, right? So that's what we were trying to avoid happening for them because that lien reports to credit.
All right, so now you're catching some of that. So we're starting to see how this deal's evolving. So we've gone through no deal to let's try to short this, to no short to let's try and buy the first position.
Right.
Now that we've made it through that, how are we continuing to evolve down this path? Because we didn't stop. We just once again pivoted.
We pivot. We look at how can we possibly drag money out of this deal because, again, we have a motivated seller. He wants to work with us, but his requirements are very minimal. He just doesn't want a foreclosure on his record, right? That's basically all he wants to look at. So we don't have the ability to just buy that note, okay? So then we start thinking, and we say, okay, we've got to somehow remove this guy's name from that lien, right? Because you're on the right path there. If we can foreclose on that first lien, we can wipe out the second lien.
Okay.
Right? That's the right train of thought, which I've actually seen a couple of people pipe in with some similar trains of thought, right? So keep giving us your ideas here. Let's pull these out. So if we foreclose on that first lien, completely wipes out the second lien. That's why lien position matters so much. But we can't foreclose on the lien as it sits because that hurts his credit.
Okay.
So what if we assumed the lien, right? What if we assumed that note?
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So let's approach that. Explain to me how a loan assumption works.
So a loan assumption is going to be different than subject to, although a lot of people misappropriate, if I use the right term there, subject to with a loan assumption, where basically I'm taking over someone's payments. Sub to is me making someone's payments on their behalf. But a loan assumption is a full process where I'll approach the bank and say, I know you loaned this money to Billy, but I would really like to step in Billy's shoes and be the borrower of record on this property. Can I go through and underwrite with you and do the loan application and see if I will qualify to assume Billy's loan?
Right. So this is what's going to happen. Let's say that Daniel is the wholesaler here, right? He's the investor, and I'm the banker that owns this first lien note.
Okay.
And Daniel says, I want to assume this lien. And I'm going to say, first of all, sorry, this lien isn't assumable. Second of all, assuming it was assumable, then I'm going to say, okay, cool. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to bring me your taxes for the last couple of years. I need to show me the bank statements for this last year. And I need you to put your name on this loan and show me your social security number on this loan.
Okay.
Okay? The human being, right? This bank, this first lien bank, is not going to lend and allow to assume an LLC.
Right.
They want an actual human being.
Okay.
So if we were to go down that road, cool, let's assume it. Let's put our actual human being name on it. But the way to get out of this is to foreclose. Well, now who's getting hit with the credit?
You are.
The investor is.
Right.
Right?
Well, I am.
You are.
So if I take over and I assume Billy's loan, and then I go through the process of, foreclosing on myself, I'm now the one that's going to get hit with the foreclosure. So I've got some ideas in the back of my head of how to get around that. How did you get around this? What did you do?
Well, that's the secret sauce. That's when we start getting into it. So how about we throw out your ideas in case they are something else that we could have done?
So I haven't put this through legal or anything, because when you start getting creative like this,
let's
you
be
need
real
a
clear.
lot of legal on your side. This is not, when we start getting into into this creative stuff and we're sitting here talking about this stuff, this might not be legal across all 50 states. You need attorneys with you when you start getting outside of the very clean, clear-cut box.
You want to know how many attorneys we consulted on this? 6.
So that is a clear indication of what you're watching today is a very advanced strategy that should only be implemented with the care and counsel of adequate legal advice. So do not just go out there and start trying to do this all on your own. But so I'm sitting here thinking about this. I go for a loan assumption. I take over Billy's loan. The property's now in my name. I don't want a foreclosure. I would then sell it for myself to a shell entity subject to the existing loan, taking me out of title and then letting the shell. Well, no, because I still got the note.
You're still on the hook.
I've still got the deed of trust and everything else there. So I'm kind of SOL on that right there. So
so that's the challenge. So that's where and guys, I've got to get proper credit where credit's due. I was partnered with Scott Horn at this point in time. Scott Horn is a brilliant dude.
This guy's like a 30-year vet in the industry.
Yeah, he and I sat in rooms for hours brainstorming ideas back and forth of how we could get this done, and then approached other attorneys. Even though he's an attorney, we then approached other attorneys to see how they felt about this deal, right? So there's, again, just we are not lawyers. Consult your attorneys. Be very careful when you're doing stuff that's super advanced.
So Chris Sweeney said something up there. He's like, quit claim to entity after assumption, then foreclose. But I'm still on the line for the deed of trust. Right. Just because the deed changed doesn't change my agreement with the bank. So I'm still personally liable to the bank for this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So that's what we need to get around. Okay. So then our next thought is, okay, so how about we refinance Billy? Okay. So let's create an entity that is going to refinance Billy.
Refinance. What's the difference between refinance and assumption?
So with an assumption, we're going in and we're saying, hey, I want to take Billy off of the mortgage and I want to put me on the mortgage. And the decider of that is the first lien position. Okay. We're going to say, we're going to start just calling the first lien local bank, and we're going to start calling the second lien should have gotten some money bank.
Real quick, just because I've done a lot of episodes with both of you guys, like anytime we've ever talked about the stuff, we're always like, assumption, stay away from assumption of loans. Like, can you take 15 seconds to go into that? Because, it seems like on Propelio TV for the past year and a half, we've said, hey, that's the kryptonite, stay away.
Right.
It sounds like you're saying, go for it.
No,
not at all. This is a different strategy.
Yeah. This is a little bit different, okay? So we are, and I think that will start to unfold itself. I think that's a good observation there. And even in this episode, both of us have said, no, we don't want to assume, because if we assume, our name is on that loan, so any foreclosure actually affects us as a human, right? Everything that you do, let me be very clear in this. Do not ever sign a single piece of paper with anything but your LLC's name in real estate. I say that very, let me put it this way. Everything always depends. I love that. Daniel is always an instrument. So I didn't, you've heard me say this before, I didn't put a single dollar out of my back pocket into a deal until about deal 55 or 60. I never put my name personally on a deal until about deal 110, okay? Putting your personal name on a deal is a big deal.
It opens up all the liability to yourself personally and all of your personal assets.
So my only time that I'm going to say your personal name might go on a deal is like on the loan for a deal, right? Like you might have to personal guarantee a deal with a private lender or with your bank or something like that. That might happen, but don't do that on a deal where you're planning to foreclose on yourself. That's a terrible idea. So that's what we're trying to get around here. So you'll see kind of where the assumption, because we do use an assumption. That is part of the equation of this making this money.
So let's go through this.
So we look at what if we refinance them? Okay, can we refinance Billy so that we can be in that decider's position? Because remember when I said local bank decides what happens. Okay, well, we need that power.
You have already said what you're about to do, but you've said it in such a way that I don't think people are really catching what's happening here, because you tend to just keep going. I need to rewind back and use the key term that you're saying here, refinance.
Refinance. Okay, so with a refinance, what happens there is you are, instead of an assumption, right? An assumption says I'm putting my name on, I'm removing your name. A refinance is a bank coming in and saying, your old loan, we're going to pay it off, and we're going to give you a new loan for new terms, okay? So a refinance, think about it like this. Like we do seller financing a lot, right? I've got a lot of borrowers that are at 9.5%, 30.
Let me boil this way down for just this casual, everyday learned about real estate person. When you refinance, all you're doing is saying, I've been paying Bank of America my mortgage every single month, but I don't like Bank of America anymore. I'm going to go to Chase and see if Chase will now give me a loan and get Bank of America out of my life so I can start paying Chase instead. Right. I don't want to deal with Bank of America anymore. I want to deal with Chase. So I'm going to refinance my existing loan with Chase, and I'm going to kick Bank of America out of the picture.
Yes.
An assumption is where I say I can no longer afford this house, Bank of America. Can I let Grant start making my payments for me instead? And we're going to just call it those two things.
Right. Perfect. So we start looking at refinancing Billy, okay? Because we need to be in that local bank's position. We need to have the right to decide.
You keep saying we. Why?
Because
what's going on?
Look at what. So I'm trying not to give away the punchline too early, right? So what we're ultimately trying to do is because the idea was right. The idea was right. If we could get, if we were like assumed on that and foreclosed, then we can get rid of that second, right?
Right.
But to assume and get there, that puts our own personal name there.
Okay.
So we need a way that we can assume this loan as an LLC rather than as a human. Okay. But local bank is never going to approve an assumption to an LLC.
So now you've just given me your thought process. That's what I'm trying to drag out. I'm trying to drag that thought process out of how you were evolving from step 1 to step 2. So the evolution of this deal came from, I need to foreclose to wipe out this second, but I can't do that and give the seller what they want because the seller wants no foreclosure.
Right.
So then your thought process evolves to, well, maybe I can assume it. But then if I assume it, that puts me liable for it as well. So how can I essentially take control of that first without putting myself in liability? And this is where you come to, so now maybe I can refinance the existing loan with something else that puts me in control.
Exactly.
So this is the evolution of the thought process.
Because we need to replace local bank.
Right.
Local bank is not playing, they're not going to allow us to assume Billy's loan with an LLC.
Okay.
So we need to be in that decision factor process. We need to have that ability to say, no, it's okay to assume as a LLC, right? So we're like, okay, so let's refinance them, right? Okay, so if we refinance, here's the challenge with that. If we refinance him just straight up, and we say, okay, Billy, we're going to give you a new loan to pay off local bank. When are we filing that loan? We're filing that. Do you see where I'm going with that? Yep. When are we filing that loan?
You're filing it years into the future as a subordinate position to the first lien position.
Right. Because remember when I said it doesn't matter how much the lien is for, it only matters when that lien was recorded? So if we refinanced that $300,000 and we recorded it years after that $180,000 second, well, guess what happens? The $300,000 gets paid off. The $180,000 now becomes second or first lien position because it's the earliest loan of record. And so, of course, they're going to foreclose at that point in time, and they're going to wipe our $300,000 out. We just reversed the situation.
So how are we going to refinance this property and maintain our lien position?
So there's something called a rate and term refinance. Okay. This is, again, where we start getting into the really advanced, complicated stuff. So the bank we didn't want to buy the loan from the bank, because if we buy the loan from the bank, we have to adhere to the lending terms that are out on that loan. Okay. That loan says that Billy is the name on the loan. And if we were to assume on the loan or down the way or anything like that, like Billy's name was still going to be affected by a foreclosure. Right? So what we do, something called a rate and term refinance that says, yes, we are refinancing you, but we're not really refinancing you as a new lender. We're refinancing you from this old lender's position. And this is complicated, so bear with me. So instead of, hey, I'm giving you a new loan, and we're going to record it today, which is years after the second lien was recorded, we talked to local bank. And we said, hey, local bank, here's what we would like to do. We need to be in your position, and we need to make this loan different, because we need it to be assumable. I think, now that I'm thinking back on it, I think part of the issue was that loan was not assumable. So that was that kind of out of the question anyway, now that I'm thinking back on it. Because we needed that loan to be assumable, because we needed to assume it to a LLC. Right? But if we bought the loan, we would not be able to really change that loan and say, okay, all of a sudden now it's assumable because we just purchased the loan. So we needed to refinance it, but we needed first lien position. So we talked to the bank and we said, how about this? We will pay you $300,000 for this $300,000 loan, which is great. I see Kristen's watching. I see we've got a couple of, Brady Durr is watching. We've got a couple of note buyers. Note buyers, when you're buying a note from a bank, if you're going to buy that note, are you buying it for full par? Are you buying it for full price?
No, I want a discount.
You want a discount, okay? So banks are used to that. Banks are used to, hey, if somebody wants to buy my loan, they're going to buy it. They're going to offer me 75% of what that loan is worth. So we've come in with something enticing to this mortgage company. We've called local bank and we've said, hey, local bank, guess what? Billy is $80,000 behind on his second lien. How long do you think it's going to be before he gets behind on yours? Okay? If you are willing to give us a term of a rate, or give us the ability to do a rate and term refinance, transferring the loan to us essentially here, then we will pay you off the full $300,000 that you're owed. So we essentially did buy that loan from them in just different semantics, in just a different way, right?
You accomplished the same end result, but you took a different approach.
Exactly.
You didn't just approach them and purchase the note and assign the rights. You refinanced the borrower through a new bank and therefore took the rights.
Right.
But it still ended in the same thing.
It still ended in the same thing.
You had to take a different approach because they would not accept the sale of the note up front.
Right.
And you didn't like the terms of the note up front.
Right. So what we did is we formed an LLC.
Okay.
To this day, this is the only thing this LLC has ever done. This is part of the protection, right, that we were putting into play. So we formed an LLC called
blank, blank, blank.
Blank, blank, blank bank. Right? Not bank. You can't use the word bank, but whatever. We're saying that. We're going to call it, whatever, Billy Loan. Billy Loan Bank. So we formed the LLC called Billy Loan Bank. This LLC's sole purpose in life was to refinance Billy. Okay?
Can I pause?
Please.
I hate to pause, but I have a question coming in from YouTube that says, why did you go through all of this? Why not move on? And I can give you 115,000 reasons why you do not just move on. So whenever you're able to get creative and you're able to look outside the box, you're able to do deals that other people can't do. And when you're able to do deals that other people can't do, you can create the margins that you need to go from paydays to paychecks, from paychecks to paydays. You are not trying to do this for your $5,000 wholesale assignment fee. That is small time money. You are trying to add zeros to your deals. And whenever you can learn how to string together strategies and build out deals that look like this, you go from making $5,000 wholesale assignment deals to making six-figure paydays. And if you knock out several six-figure paydays in a short period of time, your life has changed. So this is why we're doing that.
Yep, $115,000 of a net profit on this deal. So, so we create Billy Loan Bank, right? Billy Loans Bank solely purposed for refinancing Billy. So we send Billy through an RMLO.
Okay.
We do a full loan application. We do a full Dodd-Frank compliant loan with Billy for Billy Loan Bank. And Billy Loan Bank looks at Billy's financials, and because of our intricate knowledge of Dodd-Frank, because of our intricate knowledge of how mortgages work, we know it doesn't matter that Billy is $80,000 behind on his second. As a small creditor, somebody who's done fewer than 2,000 first lien transactions in the previous calendar year and has less than $2 billion in assets, you are a small creditor. As a small creditor in Dodd-Frank's terms, you can do what's called a qualified mortgage, basically with anybody you want. You just have to have the pieces of paper in front of you, and Dodd-Frank's terminology that it uses is consider and verify. So we considered and verified his financial position as Billy Loans Bank and said, we're cool with that. We'll loan this guy $300,000 on a $500,000 house, right? So then we said, we're going to approve this loan for $300,000. And we talked to local bank and we said, okay, local bank, we will give you $300,000 for this loan if you will give us the right to do a rate and term refinance, which basically means we're refinancing him. We're only changing the terms of his loan. We are not giving him a new loan. That's the difference between a rate and term refi and a straight up refi. Like we talked about a straight up refi. I don't like Bank of America. I want to go to Chase. Okay. A rate and term refi is like, hey, if I'm already at Bank of America and I just don't like my terms on it, then they can adjust those by modifying the deed of trust and modifying the note essentially to a new one, which keeps the recordation date, which was in first lien position. So that's what we did. So we refinanced, we got the rate and term, so we have now snuck into first lien position with Billy Loan Bank and lent to Billy. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to, now that we've set up the first half of that, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, I'm going to wrap it all up and show you guys how we took that first lien position, didn't affect his credit, didn't affect our credit, wiped out the second lien, and made $115,000. You'll see when we get back.
All right, thank you every one of y'all for sticking through that commercial break. Thank you all for watching Propelio TV today. For those of you that are just now tuned in or tuned in a little late, I'm gonna catch you up on where we're at here. We've got a deal here that Grant was looking at, 300K first position lien, 180K second position lien, 80,000 in arrears, worth 500,000, no equity there at all. You went in, you tried to short the second wouldn't take us short. And I'm just kind of speeding through this so y'all can catch up. Tried to short the second, nothing happened there. Then tried to buy the note, the first position lien wouldn't sell it. So then you went through, created another entity and did a rate and term refinance so you could sneak into first position, and that's where we're at right now. But for everybody that's watching right now and you have yet to see somebody drop this level of knowledge on here, we're giving you some advanced, some extremely advanced strategies here. We're teaching you things or just exposing you to things, not even teaching, we're exposing you to things that y'all have probably never seen in your life. If you could do something for me today right now, and that is like our page, like Propelio's Facebook page, go to Propelio.com, the people that is putting all of this on for you. If you feel like you're getting value out of this and you feel like that we are providing more to you than you are getting anywhere else, share that with people. Tell people about what's going on here. Check out Propelio.com. It is a software tool for real estate investors just like yourself. Go out there, check out the Propelio Academy, check out all of these things that we're trying to do for you, and just remember that when it all comes back to it, that Propelio is the people that are putting this on for you, and just help us out with that. Share it, like it, tell everybody else about it. Let's get back to your story though.
Absolutely. So, all right. So we have, I'm going to replace the word sneak into second or first lien position with slid into first lien position. We have slid ourselves into first lien position now. So now we're in a powerful spot. Now we have a loan with Billy that we fully control. Okay. So the loan is to Billy. Now, we are still in a situation that if we were to foreclose right there to wipe out the second lien, Billy's loan or Billy's credit is going to be affected. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. So we create another LLC. Okay. And we call this LLC, we're about to make a bunch of effing money LLC.2. And so,
hold on, I need you to pause and rewind on that. And before I let this slip my head, I have to do this every show. My daughters are watching right now, and they absolutely love seeing Daddy over here on TV. So Tyla, I love you. Thank you for watching. Aww. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miranda, for watching. Tyla, I love you. I'll see you in a little bit. I love you, Bear. I'm sorry for having to go to work this morning, but Daddy loves you, and I'll see you in a little bit. So not to interrupt your thing there, I have to make sure I tell my daughter I love her every time I'm on the show.
That's awesome. And let me know that abbreviations are the only thing I can use, right?
So you create LLC number 2, which is I'm about to make a whole bunch of money. Let's see what happens there, man. This is wild.
We create BFM LLC, big money. And so what we do is we buy this house from Billy, subject to. Okay. So now we're using another strategy. Remember how I always talk about like, hey guys, you need to know, you need to have a tool belt so that you can use every strategy in different situations for different things. Well, here we're using, oh, by the way, I got that $300,000 from a private lender. Okay. By the way, not a single dollar of our own money went out on this. Okay. Private lender's cool with it.
I love 100% finance deals.
Yeah. Private lender's cool with it. $300,000 out. on a $500,000 house?
All day long.
All day. No big deal, right? So we got a private lender to lend that money. So just to be clear, none of our own cash is on the line here. That lender also went straight into the LLC without a personal guarantee. So not even our name is on the line here, okay? So just being clear. Anyway, so BFM comes in, buys the house, sub to...
From the new LLC that you just refied.
Right. Right.
I know the deal, and I'm trying to make sure that people else
I know,
along.
yeah, right. And maybe I should, and so we actually had the assumption in there, right? The assumption clause, because when we did that rate and term refi, we made it assumable. So we allowed the assumption, Billy Loan Mortgage, to BFM LLC.
Okay.
And part of that assumption was an explicit release of all liability for Billy.
Okay.
Okay. That was part of the deal here. Was an explicit written release when we did this assumption with BFM that Billy was no longer on the hook for anything at all. We weren't going to report anywhere because we all knew what was going to be happening in the future. Okay. So BFM comes in, buys the house, assumes, and now BFM owes Billy's loan bank a couple grand a month. Can you guess how many payments BFM made?
I'm not going to make any guesses on that, and I wouldn't recommend any guesses be made on it. I'm just going to assume that BFM defaulted on the terms of the deed of trust in some form or fashion that allowed a default to occur. I don't. If you're comfortable with, go for it.
So we defaulted on ourselves, right? Different entities, different people. Right.
I'm going to have to slow this down just because I know the deal and it's still there. You refinanced Billy into a new loan or into a rate and term refinance into an entity that y'all had control of.
Yes.
That gave you control of the mortgage.
Correct.
The
first lien mortgage.
Of the first lien mortgage.
Because we slid into first lien spot.
You slid into first lien spot through the rate term refi, and now you are controlling that mortgage with Billy, that first position mortgage. You then create yet again another LLC. So you've already created one, that's to do the refi. You have then created yet again another LLC, and that LLC has assumed the loan from Billy now.
Yes.
And since I am also in control of the mortgage, I can allow that assumption. And since I have allowed Billy to let this LLC that I also control assume the loan, I am now in control of this entire deal from the buyer to myself. And that is where we have made it to up until now.
Yes.
And you had 6 attorneys.
And we had 6 attorneys look at this, and we have different humans in each LLC. And you know, it's like you really need to, this is a very, I don't particularly like talking about this deal.
That's why I'm trying
in person or in public, because there's so many ways you can screw this up and do it the wrong way. So please consult attorneys. It is a very thin line that you have to walk on legalities of all these things that are going on, right? But we did consult attorneys, we did walk that line, and we did do things the right way that we don't have time to go into in an hour show, right?
Yeah, we're not here to give legal advice.
And we're not here to give legal advice. We're giving ideas.
Yes.
So BFM LLC defaults, and we had a conversation because one step that we forgot to move is like we tried to short sale the second and that didn't work. We also tried to buy the second and that didn't work. We also tried to just give them, I guess that was the short. So yeah, we tried to buy, so they weren't playing ball at all. Well, we even notified the second of the pending foreclosure and then we again tried to approach them and say, because BFM defaults to Billy Loan Bank. So then we had, I can't remember who, I think Billy Loan Bank send notice to the second lien that says there has been a default here. We are giving you a courtesy that the loan is going to foreclose and you are going to lose your position. At which time we then called the second lien again, I believe as Billy Loan Bank, but I can't remember who called them at that point in time.
But you're doing everything you possibly can to give the second position an out.
Yes.
You're trying to give them an out. You're trying to say, hey, we'll buy the note from you. We'll refi it from you. We'll do something with you. But
we want you to make some money. There's plenty of meat on the bone for everybody to make money here.
Yeah.
You got to work with us. But they didn't want to, right? So we let them know it was going to foreclose, and then we reached out to them again and said, hey, it's going to foreclose. We would still be happy to give you money. I think BFM may have called that. I can't remember who called at that point in time. And they still didn't want to play ball, and so we said, okay, all right, you don't want to play ball, you're going to lose everything, that's fine. And so Billy Loan Bank posts foreclosure on BFM, which is a commercial loan because BFM is not a consumer. BFM is an LLC that did not live in the property, which means that we did not have to adhere to consumer laws like a 120-day late before you can proceed with that foreclosure. Here in Texas, you can foreclose basically on day 11 if they are late on a commercial loan. So we posted for foreclosure and foreclosed on ourselves. And 4 days before the foreclosure, Second Lien Bank all of a sudden says, holy moly, and tried to post for foreclosure. And we were like, what are you, because they're 30 days out.
Yeah, so they waited till the very end to try and post they should have been pushing for a foreclosure months and even years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So we foreclosed on ourselves. And when a first lien position forecloses, it absolutely wipes out all subordinate lending. Nobody gets anything at all whatsoever. So we now own a $500,000 house for $300,000. We actually took a $313,000 loan from our lender so that we could put $13,000 worth of rehab into this 6,000 square foot house, or 55.
That's like no rehab.
It was like paint, right? We painted and I think maybe replaced a patch of carpet someplace upstairs. So yeah, we owned a house for $500,000 that was worth $500,000 for $300,000, and that's how we got there.
So that is absolutely the stress that I am trying to imply to every one of y'all that is watching these weekly shows. We do the Monday shows every single Monday. That's why we call them the Monday shows. But what I'm trying to help y'all out with here is get you out. I'm getting trolled big time from the back of the room.
We do Monday shows on Mondays.
What we're trying to get through your heads, though, is I see so many people out there screaming and yelling wholesale. And while I have nothing but respect for you, and I believe that that is a good way to get into this business, you cannot get stuck in that box and stay there forever.
We've both made money on wholesales.
Yeah,
wholesales are a good strategy.
But it's just one.
But it's just one. It should not be your only strategy.
So we just talked to you about how he took a deal that was a deal that every wholesaler out there that has no experience other than wholesaling would have walked on this deal. And if they walked on this deal and they did not have the network put into play, which is something else we stress a lot on this show, is build your network, build your team around you. They wouldn't have had the creative minds like Grant and Scott Horn and some of the other people over there that all had this playing together. They could not have done this deal. But it was the experience and the creativity and the simple fact that y'all were not holding to that box of I'm a wholesaler that allowed y'all to take a deal that went from nothing to creating a six-figure payday. And if you're new into this business and you're struggling going from day to day to day and you're making it from one paycheck to the next, the way for you to get out of that box that you're stuck in is to start applying and increasing your ability to become a transactional engineer. Being that person that's driving in, and then when they see a block, they just move a little bit. And they start going this way and see another block, and they start going back the other direction. And the better you are at getting to A, the why behind the seller, find out what they're truly needing, and then B, having that creative mind that allows you to step outside of that small box. We've got somebody watching right now that brought a deal to me close to a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, dead in the water deal, no equity. The seller owned it free and clear, but wanted retail value for it, had no desire to take a discount. Property was in great condition, but it was a dead deal because this person did not know how to move from that cash discount offer. I got on the phone with the seller, and within 15 minutes, I had a contract ready to paper up. Owner finance terms, zero down, very, very minimal payments that allowed it to cash flow with no money out of pocket and no credit in the deal. So it was like perfect deal. So whenever you learn how to start structuring deals, you'll take your close ratio from 7, 12, 15, 20% to 60, 70, 80% just because you're no longer trying to just tooth and nail go for that cash discount.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you said so many good things in there, and I love the phrase transactional engineer. Ryan, what's up?
I just had an analogy because we always talk about wholesaling and stuff too. They're all tools in a toolbox. Well, if you think about it this way, wholesaling is a hammer when you have a whole other houses are screws. So you can use a hammer on a screw.
Or you can
you're welcome.
And if you're just a hammer, guess what? you're screwed. I tied it all
let's
together.
hit some of these questions.
Yeah, let's hit up some of these questions here. But you know, that is a really good point. And again, I want to stress the same thing that we're stressing here. Focus is massively important. We need to be focused on things, right? We need to focus, but too many people focus on, okay, that means that I need to be a wholesaler or a landlord or a fix and flipper. My argument is that you're a single family real estate investor, okay? Your focus is this asset class. Your focus is not this strategy.
Right.
Okay? So here's a question. How did you know from the beginning that it was going to be a big deal? Well, there's a first lien position for 300 and a second lien position for 180, right? Mm-hmm. So we had 2 split liens, and we had a seller that was intelligent, super willing to work with us. Again, motivated seller. So it was worth talking about. It was worth having those ideas. And you know, how did you know that this was? You know, this is the douchey answer. It's because we're smart and we studied the business.
I can help with that through the understandings of lien positions. If I went into that deal and had a $480,000 first lien position,
no deal.
Could it have still been a deal?
A short.
Yes, possibly.
Yeah.
Because I could have shorted that first lien position, but it wouldn't have been nearly as attractive. But my experiences with foreclosures, my experience with lien position says I've got a $300,000 first lien position, which means that second lien position is in a bad spot. So from intuitively, just looking at the documents of record, I can tell that second lien position is in a bad spot, which in my mind is a leading indicator that they're going to be motivated to work with me. So when I'm first sitting down with that seller, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, $480K first lien position, man, we could probably short it. That's okay. We'll see what happens. But when I approach it and I see a $300K first lien and I see a big whopping $180K second position, I now know that I can negotiate with that second lien position far better than I could ever negotiate with a first lien position, because that second lien position is in such a bad spot. Mm-hmm. And since I know that going into the transaction, I am more motivated to work that deal because the dynamics of the underlying transactions in the background tell me that I have a high probability of being able to pull something off with this. Right. So my initial thought would have been, yeah, let's short the second, because the second should have the common sense to know what to do. Your experience was second was being stupid from all the way beginning to the end. That's all I can say.
Yeah, basically.
So my initial thought would have been, yeah, let's go in and short it, great deal. But once that short got stopped, I would have started stalling. Mm-hmm. And that's where your creativity came in, and you were able to still push that deal down the road because of the dynamics of entering into the transaction. You were able to expose all of the things going on around it.
That's an incredibly eloquent way of putting that. Thank you for explaining that in such a manner. Yeah, and absolutely. And you know, and I want to go back to so how did you know how to do this? Well, look, if this was my first deal or I'd never done anything before, I wouldn't know how to do this. But guess what? I was with people who did through networking, right? And we had that education around us, and it's so important. Guys, check out propelio.com/academy. There is a full-blown academy that teaches you guys how to do cool stuff, right? I have a full module on seller financing on how to do cool stuff. CreativeCashflow.com. We have a weekly Q&A where you can pick the brain of somebody who's been there before you. I didn't do this deal on my own. I didn't do this deal on my own and with a dude who's had 35 years of experience. I did this on my own with a dude who's had 35 years of experience and with 6 attorneys being involved, right? We used the resources that were around us, and you guys are in a very cool position because you have resources that are available to you on your computer. This did not exist in 2012, right? You have the ability to learn how to do this cool stuff and to learn from guys who have been there and done that. So take advantage of that.
Subtle plug for Grant Kemp right now. He doesn't tell people often enough. I'm going to tell people for you. Grant Kemp was my mentor. I have so many people that hop in my direct messages saying, hey man, I really want you to mentor me. I really want you to mentor me. I am not a mentor. I don't have the personality for it. I just get short with people. But dude, you are a great mentor. You mentored me through a lot of transactions. And if y'all want to look for a mentor, hit Grant Kemp up. You do weekly coaching calls. You do all of those types of things. Do go out to creativecashflow.com, his website. Do check all those stuff out.
And I'll throw a little Act Now plug in there, and that our price was supposed to go up on Friday, but my tech guy's a little bit behind on building out the new module pages. But we've got new modules coming up for negotiations and that kind of thing. What you would get right now for $650 as a lifetime membership is going to be split as if you want the weekly Q&A, it's going to be $12.95, and if you want the videos, it's going to be $8.97, and that's going to start very soon. As soon as my tech guy gets done with this new module page, that price is going up. So if you're thinking about joining in, go to Creative Cashflow right now, and you'll get in for way cheaper. So there's my actual plug. So let's go back to the actual question. So does the refi stay in first lien position? From Nadine. Great question. So that's why I was saying the word slip, right? We kind of slipped our way into first lien position. This is something that you're not going to probably, like the fact that we were able to refinance on a rate and term refi, this was one of the big contributors or contributions that Scott had to this deal. I wouldn't have known how to do that on my own. Scott was like, well, hey, hold on. We can do a rate and term refi so that we still keep that lien position, but we're able to refinance it with new terms that allow it to be assumable, that allow us to remove Billy's name from the loan. So let's go that route, right? So we refinanced him through conversing with, and that was another part of like, why did you think of this, of doing this? Because it was a local bank. It wasn't a, it wasn't one of these big banks either. So that was even another clue to us that there might be an ability to chat with somebody that has a brain, that can understand that there's a way for their bank to make some money on this, right? There was little hints, little breadcrumbs along this path that led us to be that. So yes, we stayed in first lien position by doing the rate and term refi.
So that's a great question, because lien position could have destroyed you. If you did something with that and you lost your lien position, you would have just lost everything.
We could have very easily reversed the situation. Oh, we'll just refinance them, reassume, blah, 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 and then realized, oh crap, we're actually now in second lien position. Right. And then the first lien lender at, should have made a bunch of money bank would actually foreclose. And they would have made a ton of money because they would have had a house worth $500 for $180.
So we got a question.
Jason, start to finish. Oh. Never mind. Start to finish. From the first conversation with the owner to the closing to the end buyer, how long did it take? And that is a great question that I did want to talk about today.
6 days. 6 days.
And for $6.95, I will teach you how to do this too. Absolutely not. So one of the things that I really appreciate that Daniel always draws out of me is because I have a bad habit of talking about how you can get into this business with no money. Because I got into this business with no money. But the caveat that I now add to that after conversations with Daniel and him like slapping me up in the head, and he's like, yeah, you got in with no money, but you ended up having money, and you have to have money to stay in. So our phrase now is, you don't have to have money to get in, you have to have money to stay in, okay? So on your first deal, don't go out and buy that Lambo. Put that money aside, because that's that money that's gonna help you through the hard times. This deal wore me the hell out over a year and 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Okay? This took a long time to get from start to finish, okay? Now, part of that was we were in a buyer's market. We had a $500,000 house. This was in 2013-ish or so. So now the equivalent might be like a $750,000. I'll put it this way. It was approximately 3 to 4 times the median price.
That's a good indication. So for y'all in California, $750,000, $500,000 is not even a dirty piece of land. But in Texas, our average home price is around at that time, probably about 180.
Yeah, at that time it was 150, 180, right? And this is a $500,000 house.
So we're way outside of the average market.
As another clue, you want to know who bought this? An NFL player,
so
right?
There you
go. Who I will leave nameless, right? But somebody who plays for the NFL, I think is actually currently on rosters as a starter, bought this house from me. So that's the level of house we're talking about, right? Now, here's what sucks. And I tell you guys, I tell my students this all the time. Taking down deals is awesome, right? But debt service freaking sucks. Debt service is awful. And this was a hole in my boat for a long time that cost me like $4,000 a month. Okay? That hurt. That hurt a lot because, hey, I don't care how much money you're making. You start losing $400,000 a month, $4,000 a month on a house that's just sitting there vacant. That sucks. But that happened, right? Now, when it sold, all was well. We netted 115, like I said, where our actual cash check was somewhere. I mean, what was that? We were in for 300, we sold for 500. So we
$150-ish gross.
Gross of like 150, but we actually netted like 115. So took a long time, took a lot of thought process, but brought the right partners in. And if you can't afford that, like don't be afraid of the $4,000 a month, because there's even ways to fix that, we're not going to get into today, but there's some really cool creative structuring. I mean, guys, you get this much of the iceberg a lot of times, and you can even get out of that.
So for those that are watching that are like, oh, I'm going to do this on my next deal. No, you're not. Unless you have a full team, you have the capital behind you, you've got the access to the attorneys.
Or somebody that has the capital.
This is essentially us showing you what you don't know. This isn't us showing you how to do what you don't know. This is just kind of us showing you what you truly don't know. So that way you can expose and start seeing that there is such a large opportunity out there of getting creative that you're just not exposed to and not seeing.
Right, and I appreciate you exposing that to people. I'll leave that there. Jason, if you're just a hammer, you're getting screwed. Golden nugget.
That is true, though.
I'm gonna start using that analogy more now. Big time right here. So if someone who just started, I'm glad somebody actually did. Okay, anyway, if you're whoa, I'm having a seizure now.
Basically, Big Time was saying, would you recommend that a newer investor take on something like this?
I would recommend a newer investor talking to somebody who's been there and done that and can help them through it. Yes, because so let me talk about that even further. So remember, okay.
So his very last thing was, or JV with someone who knows, and I'd say you have absolutely no chance whatsoever of doing this on your own. And I say, I don't care, even if you have some experience in real estate, do not do this deal on your own. You need a full legal team behind you through the entire process, because one misrecorded document, one misrecorded disclosure, you screw up one piece of that transaction and you go from making a lot of money to losing everything.
Yep. And to bring us back to the beginning of the story, networking, you know, the guy that I handed this deal to, he had done a few deals. He hadn't done a lot, right? But you know what he brought to the table? I'm incredibly busy. Scott is incredibly busy. This dude that I just like passed the handshake to, he made $33,000, $35,000 because he was basically our follow-up. He was the guy that was like, hey guys, we need to contact this and get back to it and blah, 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 and what's going on here? And he coordinated for us as things were going on. So he was maybe in your position that was not super experienced, but he was able to grab a nice payday from, you know, working with others, that network. Kaylee, can you always do this to wipe out second lien as long as the seller doesn't really want cash and just wants out?
I hate defined terms like always.
Yeah, always is a tough
It's all situational.
But that's why we, you know, and Daniel did such a good job of drawing out the thought processes rather than, because what we could have done is just come in here and said, hey, check this out. This was a deal where they were fully leveraged and look how I bought it, right? But that wouldn't show you the thought process that you did such a good job of drawing out of, like, hey, these were the steps that we took to get where we went, right? So that's what's really important. If you need to rewatch this again, to really think about, don't just read that and blow past it. Think about that. Think about the fact that Scott and I sat in a room for an hour and a half and said, okay, he has a house that owes $480 and a second on. So what if we short the second? Well, that takes a week or two. Right? That takes some time to try and explore shorting that second, seeing if we can go down that route. And when we got to know, we said, okay, crap. Well, can we buy it? Right? You know, so like we blow past it as just as though we sat here and we're like, oh, well, we could do this, this, and this, and this, and this. Each one of those thought processes took some time to explore, and we went down those thought processes for a reason. So you should be exploring similarly. We didn't just drop to the end and say, okay, well, we're going to refinance and foreclose on ourselves.
Well, let's do this real quick. We're going over. We've been here for a while. Let's take care of answering as fast as we can, as many questions as we possibly can.
Blow through these things.
And we're going to call this one a day.
Christian Myers, other than a purchase and sale contract and an assignment contract, what other paperwork is good to always have in the car in order to stay ready at all times?
I actually did a 2-part video series on this on Propelio.com that we might be able to either way around, there's a 2-part video series out there on that already. Great where I go through every document that I have in my car at all times.
Hashtag exposing yourself to people. Hey, I said I wasn't going to go there. I stopped just short.
All right, let's keep going.
Or just long, if you know what I mean.
All right, so for everybody that has been watching today, I apologize if we went a little long. I hope you got value out of it. I see a lot of likes. I see a lot of comments up there. Don't see a whole lot of shares yet. If you got some value out of this, please share. Please tag your friends in this. Please let everybody know that we're out there and available. Also, don't forget about Propelio.com, your resource for things like leads. Everybody out there needs leads, some due diligence aspects like real estate comps, MLS comps. And if you need websites for drawing traffic and or building credibility within your business, and you're tired of going out there handing over a business card that says @gmail.com on it, if you are needing a website for your real estate investing business and you have no tech background at all, 45 seconds or so on Propelio.com and you can have a website, build a little credibility, a little bit of branding for your business. Thank you, Grant, for coming on. Thank you, everybody out there that's watching right now. Do you have any last comments you'd like to let everybody know?
No, just thank you. I just echo everything you said. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Go to Propelio.com. Go to CreativeCashFlow.com. Don't forget he's got a special going on right now. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.